Hey guys, hope you're doing well. This is Ryan again with DP Marketing. Hope you're having an awesome day. Hey, want to come at you with a video today about the top five ways that you can fail your home service business. So maybe you're an HVAC company or electrical company or plumbing company, doesn't matter. We've done the research, we figured out what makes most often these companies fail. So it's a big deal, especially if you're wanting to grow a business. So a couple things you should know. So fact, there are over 480,000 plumbers in the United States, right? We're not making up those numbers. Those are coming from the federal government. There's a lot of them. HVAC contractors, there's over 460,000. There's a whole lot of guys in HVAC work, right? Between those two, right, they have the worst failure rate after 5 years. That basically means the estimates kind of vary, but broadly speaking, you're talking about 20% of all service companies go out of business every year. 20%. 20%. And those that make it to year 5 or in year 6, they're in the minority because this is an industry where it's easy to get into, but it's also very risky for a lot of people. Now, here's kind of what makes it difficult to think about, right? It's the industry as a whole is growing. It's very profitable. People who do well in it can make a lot of money. But typically why these people get into owning their company is because they got tired of working for someone else, so they decided to work for themselves. Or their mom or their dad, they passed the business down to them. So it creates a scenario where these people know the technical trade really well. They know how to repipe a house, or they know how to wire a J-box. But the truth is, being a great contractor, it's different than being a great manager or executive. So what we're really talking about is helping you learn business acumen, which is going to help every other aspect of your business. So where to start with this list? Here's what I think. We're going to give you 5 things. These 5 things probably are going to sound pretty scary. I would say if you're going to pick on, you can do this one of 2 ways. The first would be pick on something that doesn't sound quite as intimidating. It doesn't sound daunting. It doesn't sound scary or nerve-wracking. You feel like, oh, that's not a big deal. I can do that. And once you master that thing, then go on to the next thing on the list that now is the easiest. So what you'll notice is that the tasks get progressively harder and harder and harder as you go, but because you have fewer of them, you get more confident that you can do it, right? So when you master this one, you get more feeling, I can do this. This is not that complicated, and you start developing acumen over time. Or the other option is you start with the one that scares the bejesus out of you first. So if there's one that feels like you don't want to talk about and don't want to think about, chances are that's because you know that's an area that you need to understand and learn more. And so what you could say is, I'm going to spend the next 6 months and just focus all my energy to navigating that one problem. And you solve it. You get on top of it, you understand how it works. And then as that one's mastered, then you move on to the next one that seems daunting. But just because you already tackled the one that already intimidated you, now the next one's going to be not a big deal. And then it'll get progressively easier as you move down the list. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. What we do ask, though, is just don't do nothing, right? That's the worst thing you could do, is read this list and then not try to understand it, not try to apply it, and choose the path of ignoring it. Because if that's the case, chances are, statistically speaking, that will cause your company to fail, likely within 5 years. So here we go, without any extra ado, our top 5 list of how to drive your company to the ground. So number 1, if you want to drive your company to the ground, don't pay your taxes. Now this is a hard one for a lot of people because nobody likes paying Uncle Sam for anything. Here's a trick. There's a difference between just making strategic decisions to minimize your tax burden and then what IRS calls, they actually use the terms voluntary, conscious, and intentional going around and paying taxes. So there's a difference between using strategy to not have to pay as much and then trying to actually shortchange Uncle Sam by shady practices. So some of the most common practices that get people in hot water that are service contractors, right, is you underreport your income. You're not saying what it is. It's got to be accounted for. That includes cash transactions. Barter transactions count as that. You can also keeping deposits under $10,000, right? Because anything over $10,000 has to be reported to the IRS. So sometimes you try to find ways to underreport what actually cash you're getting in. And another one is sometimes you try to pay cash to employees. And this happens a lot by paying people under the table. You go, well, I don't have to pay tax, I don't have to pay tax. No one's the wiser. That can come back and bite you. Another issue is over-reporting your expenses, right? Saying we're spending more than we are. Things like travel, things like bringing a spouse on a business trip and claiming the spouse's expenses as the business's expenses. Those are really common just to kind of inflate how you're actually not honoring the letter of the tax law. And probably more often than not, what gets companies in trouble is that they don't report their taxes at all, right? They just don't pay Uncle Sam. So this means not only sales tax. So in most states, you have to pay a sales tax on the actual physical product that you're doing. If you sell a physical product, you have to pay a sales tax with it. In some states, they get into a service tax. So your labor time actually is a tax. Like Kansas is like that. Oklahoma's talking about going that way. So employee tax, Social Security tax, FICA, all those things have to get lumped together and get paid to the government. If you don't report that and the IRS catches wind, things get complicated quickly. So the IRS can come in, they can bill you up to 25% extra for late tax payments. On top of that, they can start seizing benefits. They can start seizing your Social Security benefits. They can start seizing vehicles. They can start seizing your buildings and assets. Here's the really scary part where it snowballs fast. So all those things are bad, right? Because it makes it where getting out of the hole that you dug in by not paying taxes just gets more and more difficult to do. If you have made poor tax choices, chances are you made poor accounting choices also. And if you don't have a clear delineation of what's company money and what's personal money, if the IRS sees that you're just slushing money back and forth between your wallet and the company's wallet without really rhyme or reason, all of a sudden your personal assets are liable for business risk too. So that means you can lose your family's cars, you could lose your family's home, you lose boats to help pay the IRS back. It is not a good spot to be. This is the number one reason why service companies go out of business. Pay taxes, understand the tax law, get a CPA who helps you. If you want to fail your business, don't pay your taxes. If you want to learn from the 20% who fail every year, do it smarter than them. Find a CPA, help them coach you through what you need to know for tax, and do everything you can to avoid any sort of shortcuts. Number 2, don't manage your financials. So this is one that's really common. A lot of guys we talk to, they didn't go to college to learn finance, or like they don't have MBAs, and that's fine. That's not a big deal. The trick is though, when you're talking about a technical trade, there's a difference between doing the technical trade, right, like actually repiping a house, and running the business that does the repiping. So learning how to manage your company's financials and your assets so that you can be better equipped to make decisions is great for any company. So there's things that you should do, right? Some of the things you should understand how to properly plan and budget. You should do it every year. You need to know how to do it. It's an essential skill. You need to understand how to get your monthly financial statements and how to understand them, because there's a lot of insight, and if you know how to read those, you have an advantage on your competitor. You need to understand financial control and discipline. You need to not spend money just because it's in your bank account. You need to know things like, how much cash do I need on hand so that I float through the rest of the year based on the cycle of my business. You need to understand your income statements and your financial ratios. So these are things like, how much inventory do you have on hand? How good are you using your assets? How many trucks do you need in the field active to pay for every hour or multiple hours of the guys sitting around the shop? What's the average ratio of what you need of guys on the truck versus people in the shop supporting the people in the truck? These are ratios that the financials help you do. Another common one is like, how much you spend on marketing, right? SBA says that you need to spend between 5 and 10%. 7's a good, kind of in the middle. If you spend 7% of your annual revenue on marketing, you'll be okay. But if you're not having that control, if you don't know those ratios, you have no real litmus. You need to understand your profits, you need to understand your cash flow, and you need to understand your balance sheet. These are kind of like core, basic financial practices that you need to do. There are several like online learning ways to do it. You don't have to be slammed and overwhelmed because that's not your field. That's okay. And we can actually link them to you. We actually have a blog on this whole thing. So if you'd rather read this and see the links and the research, we'll put a link in this description. Another way you can do this and get some help is the United States government, through the Small Business Administration, has a resource called the Small Business Development Center. These are free one-on-one counseling centers. They're all across the country. They actually go into multiple countries. But they can actually work with you one-on-one and help teach you things like, hey, this is how you read financials. This is how you do a balance sheet. It doesn't cost you a penny, right? This is a free government service for you. Take advantage of it. If you're a manager or an owner of a business, it's important to understand how those things work. The third most common reason is that you don't know how to price your services. You don't use a smart pricing strategy. And look, we get it. You're in a tough field. It's a tough industry. What you normally hear in a given day is like, that's too much. I just want a fair price. I need it fixed right the first time, right? Your competitor quoted less. Whatever, you hear all these price-sensitive arguments, and you try to feel the need to just do as little as possible. Sometimes that's the worst thing you can do. So generally speaking, with a lot of service fields, there's two really popular types of budgeting your service. So the first is what's going to be with cost plus, right? Sometimes you call it time and material. Basically, the idea is you say, great, so this is how much material I've got on the job. This is how much time it's going to take me to do the job. So let's add on to profit, maybe 20%, and that will be our price. Or the second most common is going to be something where you actually let your competitors anchor your price for you. So if your competitor says, hey, they're $1,500 to do a job, then you're going to try to come in just slightly under and say, oh, if they're $1,500, then we'll do it for $1,250. The problem is on both of these scenarios is that they're not actually equipped to help your business make money. They're not optimized for you at all. So here's an example. If you do cost plus, chances are you're not counting in the time it costs you to get that sale. You're not counting in the time that it took you to do that. You're not taking in the cost of acquisition, which is how much marketing dollars did it spend for you to convert that. You're not talking about the overhead. This is the insurance. This is your payroll. This is your admin fees. This is your people. This is your vinyl wrapping on your vehicles. All those things get put in the overhead, and so that's just a resting rate that you have to carry. It doesn't matter if you got calls coming in or not. You can't just look at this is how much I'm directly contributing to this job, because you also have to think about the cost of having the business run. And in a cost plus, it's really difficult for you to manage what your actual margins are. If you're letting a competitor's price anchor you, here's the big deal with that is now let's pretend that they've smartly allocated that budget. They've determined that budget based on their ratios. They know what their admin fees are. They know what their marketing fees are. They know their operational burden rates. They know how much money they need to take in every day to stay afloat to support that call. They're going to quote that. When you get that money, you don't understand how to allocate those fees. So you don't understand, okay, this much is going to overhead, this much is paying for the guy in the truck, this much is paying for the maintenance on the vehicle. You're kind of lost without a paddle. So it's important to understand how to budget and budget your service and price your service. We're a fan of the flat rate pricing. You do all the math on front, you understand your ratios, you understand your overhead, you understand how much that costs you, and you optimize your price. Now you might say, well, that means I'm going to be charging more for my customers. Yes. And what we've learned over and over and over is customers are great paying money for something that they feel is valuable. So if you were to ask a customer, hey, do you want me to run up an hourly bill and tell you what the damage is going to be when it's done? Or if you're going to ask a customer, hey, would you rather me just tell you this is the price up front? It doesn't matter how much time it takes, we'll take care of it for that price. Which one do you think your customer is going to want to say? They're going to want to say, just tell me what it is up front. They don't want to play the guessing game. They don't want to wait. The value of knowing you're doing a great job, you're doing a great service, and you're building that up front, that will help you get more customers. So it'll make them where they're less price sensitive and more value conscious about the service you're doing. So that's a big one. The other most common way that a lot of contractors struggle is spending money on ineffective advertising. So this is best described by there's a joke from a lot of businesses say it, but it's contributed from a guy from several years ago. And the joke is essentially half the money I spent on advertising is wasted. I know that. The trouble is I don't know which half is wasted. So in marketing, it's important to understand what are your conversion ratios for your channels? How are you allocating that? What percentage of your overall revenue are you allocating to marketing to either keep your business stable or to grow more market share? You don't always want to look for things that are trendy or popular or that your competitors are doing. So if your competitor has every billboard in town, don't try to buy a billboard. Find another path. Each channel that you do, if it's social media, if it's AdWords, if it's billboards, if it's phone books, they all have different what we call conversion ratios. That's marketing speak for knowing how many leads you are likely to get from that channel. So according to National Market Institutes, who do only marketing studies, billboards conversion ratio is going to be in the ballpark of 10,000 to 1. So that means for every 10,000 eyeballs, you're going to get one potential lead. So you can start doing the math. If you're in a small town where there's only 7,000 people, you might not even get a single lead if everyone in town sees the billboard. So it's important to understand what those ratios are, and all of them are different. You want to overlap them to maximize your reach, maximize your effect. The other thing is you want to make sure you're cultivating what we call a conversion funnel, right? So in service industries, generally speaking, they only reach out when they have a problem. Their hot water heater's not working, their sewer, they've got a sewer gas smell, their power's out, they've got a new construction process, something, right? There's an issue, they need a solution. And it costs you money every time to try to find new customers who always have a problem. A far cheaper way would be to find ways to retain the current customer base you have. In fact, most studies would say it's in the ballpark of 3 times cheaper for a company to just keep a repeat customer versus having to find a new customer every day. So understanding how to use your marketing dollars, how to leverage it, and don't just blindly throw your money at things that you don't know or you're not sure or you hope or you think that they'll work. It will guarantee that your business will fail. Because the point of marketing is not that you spend money. The point of marketing is that you generate leads, you generate traffic, you start cultivating income. If you don't know how to monitor that, how to measure that, you will fail. So that's number 4. There are a couple things that you want to do. We can just broadly talk about them. You want to evaluate your customers, know who they are, how you're going to get them, understand your competition. What are they doing? What are they doing well? What are they not doing well? What's your niche? What makes you different than somebody else down the street? What's the best path to your customer? Knowing all those things, and then be able to measure results. When you do that, you'll have a better marketing plan. Number 5, this is a huge one, so please, if you don't pay attention to any of them, this one is a big one. Plan your business. If you want to fail, don't plan your business. If you want to succeed, plan your business. Now, in some ways, this is a lot like writing a business plan. It's going through a lot of that work. But in reality, this helps you address problems and challenges and questions before they become problems for you to address, right? So things like, how are you going to hire employees? Like, what criteria will you use? How will you find them? How will we pay them? How will you fire them? How will you know they're not working for me? I need to do something else. How will you know, hey, this is how much money we need as we grow our company. This is how much we need in labor. This is how much we need in inventory. This is what we need in overhead to support it. These are the channels we're going to do to reach that. These are the markets or the towns or the cities or the resource partners we're going to use to try to grow our business there. How will you know how you're going to manage off to a different domain? So if you're a plumbing shop, how do you know you're going to branch off into an HVAC company? How will you scale that as you grow? How you manage your risk, right? These are part of the planning process. It's important for you to know. But here's kind of the overall reason of why you're doing this. Because planning for planning's sake is no fun for anybody. There is no such thing as accidental growth. There's not. There's no such thing as putting a sign out front of the street and all of a sudden, in the end of 1 year, you're $1 million company. At the end of 5 years, you're a $5 million company. It doesn't work that way. Instead, take time to not just work in the business. Don't just be a technician. Don't just work in your trade. Take time to work on the business, right? And because you're even watching this video at all, you're taking time to work on the business. So take the time to plan, to think through the problems and challenges. How will you navigate those? Sometimes there's no right answer, wrong answer. It's just making yourself go through the process so that when the crap hits the fan, because the crap will hit the fan, you know what to do, how you'll recover, and how you'll navigate. These are not luxury decisions of, man, wouldn't it be great if we made $10 million a year and we could get a big house? We're not talking about that. What we're talking about are very tactical, very practical, very low to the ground things of day-to-day operations. How will you manage your financials? How will you make sure that your guys are maximizing the profits per truck? How will you make sure that the billing that you're doing for customers is the right where it needs to go? Spend the time to plan those things, think them through, come up with answers. And as you get better information, update your answers, right? You don't always have to have it written down. Sometimes it's helpful. If you're a partnership, if your spouse is helping you with, if you got partners also in the company, we do recommend that you have those documents in one place. So God forbid something happens to you, you get hit by a train, they can go up, pick up all the documents, all the work you've already done, they can read through it and they can go, great, I know exactly where we are and why, and they can fill in your shoes just like nothing ever happened. So that means your guys keep having jobs, your customers keep calling in, they keep getting service, your family gets taken care of. And not because of anything magical, but because you took the time to do the work, to plan the business, and leave a trail for people behind you. So that's it, guys. If you can do those 5 things, you stand a better chance of having your business last more than 5 years. So based on the research we did, 46% of all businesses in the service industry failed because of these reasons that we talked about. That's the single largest portion. So if you can solve these 5 things, you stand a far better chance of success, and your company will do better. So, guys, I hope this is helpful. I'd love to hear what you think. So, was there anything that you think is important we didn't talk about? Is there questions you had or concerns, anything you disagree with? Or maybe you face some of these challenges. How did you overcome them? We'd love to hear. So let us know. Leave us a note in the comments, or reach out to us either on Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook. We're always doing videos like this. And if we can talk to you about your business and maybe some things you can do to optimize your efforts, feel free to reach out to us, dpmarketing.services. So that's it for today. Hope you're well and hope this was helpful. We'll talk soon.